Hello, and thank you for joining me. My name is Jessica Carter, and I'm the founder of Carter Creations Publishing House. I'm so glad you all are here to join us today for day 18 of our 25 days of Black Kids Read 2 Reading Challenge. First, again, thank you for everyone for joining us for these past 2 weeks. It's been awesome, the support that we've had with getting the publishing company started, and to have here today a guest with us to help us celebrate day 18, read a comic book. I'm so excited. We have Juaquan Herron here, comic book creator. I'm going to speak with him and get a little bit of information about his new comic book, which is out. I got it myself, The Scarlet Knight, Defender of the Block. Awesome illustrations, the theme, everything behind it. Just want to hear more about your motivation for getting it going.
So how I started 2923 Comics is I was raised by my grandparents. A little bit about my background. I do have an acting background, so I've been acting going on 10 years now. Then I started getting into writing. I would say about 6 years ago.
Okay.
So what I started doing is writing scripts and it's writing shorts and things like that. And I started, filming them and putting them on YouTube. And I ended up moving to LA as an actor. But while down there, I started working with my mentor when it comes to writing. His name is Scott Brown.
Okay.
He assisted me in writing The Come Up. And while writing The Come Up, pretty much, trying to fish it, trying to shoot it out there, and had meetings that didn't never happen, had people that were interested that never came through, tried a Kickstarter for it to try to do it on my own, and it fell through. So it just got to a point where I just got tired of waiting. And then that's when I was like, well, it's an easier way for me to do this without having to worry about actors, directors, assistant directors, and all these people, and spending all this money. I think to make the Come Up, it probably would have cost me about $50,000 to do it. So that's when I did the comic book. So that's how 2923 Comics started. I wrote my first one, which is Scarlet Knight, Defender of the Block, and that was inspired by my grandparents.
Okay, and your grandfather, definitely. I saw him being a predominant figure in your life. Can you tell us a little bit more about him?
So, to be honest, this wasn't my biological grandfather.
Okay.
I didn't really realize that or notice that until I was an adult. So I didn't know that this wasn't the man who's basically had blood running through my veins. I didn't know that. So he pretty much raised me, but this is the only man that I ever knew. And he raised me, man. I pretty much lived in my grandparents' house majority of my life. Stayed in their attic. That's where, if you look on my logo, you see how the arch of the house, the top of the house.
At the top.
That's my room. That's where I stayed in their house. That's where they raised me. So my grandfather, man, I mean, just what I want to be and what I aspire to be to my son is what my grandfather was to me. If I needed him, he was there. If I needed advice, he was there. If I needed money, he was there. It didn't matter what I needed. He was always there, someone I could depend on no matter what. And I feel like, especially in I can't say that today, but the bad stigma that black men get now that the black man isn't in the household, I can't say that because I had my grandfather every day. Now, I did not have my biological father in my life, unfortunately, but I did have a black man, a strong black man that was there the majority of my life. So he was just something that I wanted to give the world because I had him my whole life. And I figured that, when you think of Alfred, when it comes to Batman, you think about Unmay. When it comes to Spider-Man, I feel like he was like my Alfred. He was like, my Unmay.
Okay.
And I wanted to not only show that, but then I also wanted to show in the comic book about the black woman's presence in the household, the grandmother. A lot of us out there, let's just be transparent right now. It's a lot of us that were raised by our grandmother as well.
Yes.
Big mama. That. We don't have that in comic books. We don't have that grandmother in comic books. They don't really show that anymore. They show Clark Kent's mother and surrogate mother and father, but you never see a grandparent. You rarely ever see a grandparent. So I wanted to showcase that.
Okay, and that itself is just so important, having that Black representation, that family
Yeah.
element out there. I was so happy to see when you launched and seeing you hustle and bustle to get your name out there, to get that brand out there, you know, getting your upcoming convention
Yeah.
booked. You know, I'm so proud to see things of that nature because we need more brothers like you that's developing stories in print that our kids can see. So again, just congratulations up front for all your success to come, because it's amazing and it's great to see you shine in that aspect. Um, what is your creation process like? I know who has influenced you in the book itself, but when you sit down and you get to it, what does that session look like for you?
So pretty much I don't sleep. So I didn't put it like that.
What's sleep?
Yeah, I don't sleep. So every morning about 4 o'clock, and this is how this all started, just even with entertainment overall. It's so much things running through my head all day. And I think of these storylines, like literally, I think of storylines all day. Like that's what I do. Like if I'm thinking about storylines, and I need to get to the point where I'm writing them down, but I try to retain them in my mind
Uh-huh.
and just put them in my book. So how that works is I don't sleep. I usually stay up, and then I just start thinking about how can this part go into this part? How can we make this flow the best way? So like even right now, I'm writing a new graphic novel right now. I'm writing that right now and finishing that up called Meet the Hills,
Okay.
about a black family, and their vampire hunters.
Yes.
And they're the only black family of vampire hunters. And we're gonna talk about racism. We're gonna talk about being discriminated against, staying in their neighborhood. We're gonna talk about gentrification because this is a little I guess just call it an exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
They're living in their neighborhood.
Okay.
Where they grew up at. And we're going to talk about gentrification. We're going to talk about people coming in trying to pull them from their community because they are this exclusive family and they're supposed to have all these great things going for themselves, but they're still living in the hood. We're going to talk about that. But pretty much just I've been working on that like the last 2 or 3 weeks, and all I've been doing is just running stuff through my head. And what I'll do is I'll cut and paste. Like this part of the story will go better right here. And then I'll just do that until it flows right. And I kind of did that, to be honest. I kind of regurgitate, and I'm glad that people like the Scarlet Knight, but I kind of just threw it up when I was writing it. Like it flowed so naturally that I knew it was meant for me to write it because it just flows so naturally, and I didn't have to stop. I didn't have to start. Now, there were a lot of grammatical errors because I was writing so fast and I wasn't thinking, but that's what we got editors for. So I didn't, so I just like, hey, I'm going to put it on paper so they can go the right way. So pretty much don't sleep. Run storylines through your head all day until they make sense. Have a great ending. You want people always to come back. So I have a film background, so I want people to always want to come back.
Okay.
And I want to build this up so big that if one day someone does decide to come and say, hey, we would like to purchase 2Now2 3 from you, that is profitable and that they can create these storylines, more storylines to go. Okay. So, and I want to kind of create this universe. I kind of want to create this universe where all things can tie into each other and no one just dies. People just move on and come back. And that's what comic books is really all about. No one really dies. They just come back. And you got some storylines like the Gwen Stacy storyline with Spider-Man, where she did pass away. But there were so many other things that added to that before she did that. So just, don't sleep, constantly think, and just put it on paper. You got to write it down.
Write it down, yeah.
Because even though I've been blessed to like keep these storylines in my head, there have been times where I have confused Meet the Hills with the second issue that I have written for, I'm on a third issue now, that I have written for the Scarlet Knight. And I'm like, oh my God, like I messed up. Like I was supposed to go back. That goes into here. So I would recommend always have a notebook. I actually got my notepad over there. I keep a notepad on me all the time just to keep notes. So just always just be creative. Like, don't worry about nobody not liking your stuff.
Somebody gonna feel it. That's one thing for sure.
I'm confident in that, but some people just ain't gonna feel your storyline because they can't relate to it.
And then do you really want your storyline for other people to purchase that can't relate to it, can't feel it, can't pump you up, and can't see it and know, hey, that could be me one day. I can write the next comic. I could put somebody I love in there. I mean, just the fact that you're You said something a few minutes ago. Nobody ever wants to see the comic book really end. You know, you putting your grandfather's legacy in that comic book itself. Mm-hmm. He forever lives, and your comic book and you, and it's amazing what happens once you sit down, get those thoughts out, and put them in print for the next person to see.